Date November 3rd, 1996. Survivor Charlotte Neufeld. Name at birth Itzkovitz. Interviewer Shirley Berenstein. City and state New York, New York. Country United States of America. Language English. My name is Shirley Berenstein, Shirley Berenstein. It's November 3rd, 1996, and I'm interviewing Charlotte Neufeld in New York City. Can you tell me your name, please?
Charlotte Neufeld.
And can you spell that, please?
Charlottneufeld.
And what was your maiden name?
Itzkovitz.
Can you spell that too?
Itzkovitz.
Okay, can you tell me what your date of birth was?
September 26, 1919.
And how old are you now?
77.
Okay. And can you tell me the name of the city and the country where you were born?
Yes, it is Dunkovice.
Can you spell that, please?
Dunkovice.
And that country?
Czechoslovakia.
What was the name of your mother?
Her name? Zali, Z-A-L-I, Blobstein, B-L-O-B-S-T-E-I-N.
And your father's name, what was his first name?
Ignaz, I-G-N-A-C, Itzkovitz, I-C-Z-K-O-V-I-C-S.
How many children were you in your family?
8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys.
Can you tell me the names of your sisters and brothers?
Yes, my brother, older brother was Morris.
Uh-huh. And the next one?
Next one was my sister Lenke.
Uh-huh.
Then came Dora, Lajci, Berta, Charlotte,
Uh-huh.
Irene, and Ernest.
Did your family always live in Dunkovitz?
I was 1 year old when we moved from Dunkovitz to Beregszász. And we lived all the time in Beregszász.
Was Beregszász a large city or a town?
A small town, very nice, cultured small town.
How many people was in the
I would say
population?
between 25 and 30,000,
And out of that, how many were Jews?
maybe 20%.
Do you remember the house that your family lived in?
Right. It was in 22 Széchenyi utca, and it was a nice, pretty big house, family house.
A one-family house?
One family house, right. And we had a garden and another smaller garden for vegetables. Around the veranda there was a big arbor, you call it,
Yeah.
where we had grapes. Every fall we had a lot of grapes on it. And it was very comfortable for our family.
Did you have your own bedroom or did you share a
No, I
bedroom?
shared it with my sister.
Were you very close with your sisters and brothers?
To my younger sister, very close. We were together all the time in Auschwitz and all the time.
And when you were children, you played together?
Right. We kept each other company all the time.
What did your father do for a living?
He was a hay merchant. We had the fields and vineyard and real estate, but he was a merchant. You know, when it came toward the end of summer, he was traveling around in the villages. Even he went over to Hungary. We were Czechoslovakians at the time, and he bought up all the hay. They delivered into Beregszász, where we had workers who put it into big bale.
Bales, right.
And then they put it into these wagons and they sent it to Prague and to near Prague, to the army. So he did that all winter long. It went on.
Your grandparents and aunts and uncles, did they live in Beregszász also?
I had an aunt, my mother's younger sister. My father had an uncle in Beregszász.
And the rest of your family? The grandparents and your aunts and uncles?
Grandparents,
were they?
my father was an orphan. He was orphaned about 7 years of age. And his aunt raised him, actually. My mother's parents, my grandfather died, I remember when he died. My poor grandmother went into Auschwitz with the family, the rest of the family.
But when you were a little girl, did you have other family around, cousins and aunts
in
and
Beregszász,
uncles?
in nearby we had in Vár, which was not very far from us. We had cousins, and we had Beregkisfad, a lot of cousins. My parents are coming from the same place where my husband is coming, Szerze.
So your family came from the Carpathian region for a long time. I mean,
Right,
for generations.
right.
What language did your family speak at home?
At home Hungarian. But my parents spoke a very good Yiddish, and sometimes they spoke Yiddish among each other. That's why I understand everything in Yiddish now.
Did they talk Yiddish when they didn't want you to understand?
Right.
Just like here.
Yeah, that's the case. But we understood finally everything.
And how religious was your family at home?
We had absolutely kosher kitchen. My parents, even my mother, went every Saturday to synagogue. My mother was such a good reader of Hebrew, that when she belonged to a smaller synagogue, not the big synagogue. So every woman had different kind of prayer book, and they didn't know where to find a certain prayer. Everybody went to my mother to look up the prayer for her. So she was very good at it.
Do you remember going to the synagogue as a child?
Sometimes Rosh Hashanah we went to hear the shofar as a child.
But other than that,
Other than that, no.
what was it like on the Shabbos in your family's house?
It was really, we observed the Shabbat.
Can you describe to me
Well,
Friday night?
Friday nights. We had this typical kind of dinner what you had for a holiday dinner. And my father take a cup of wine and did the blessing, and we had challah on the table. It was a typically nice holiday evening. Saturday morning they went to the synagogue. When they came home, that sometimes we had guests or relatives came over. My mother baked on Fridays a lot of coffee cakes and cheesecake, and every time so everything was on the table, and they had coffee and so on, because they didn't eat before they came home from the synagogue. And then in the afternoon we were talking, we had company sometimes, we were reading, the children, we were all great readers, so we read a lot of books.
And on holidays like Passover?
Passover, we had a very nice Passover. We worked so hard before it. The whole family was involved.
In preparing?
In preparing, right. And it was we didn't have guests at Passover Seder, but we were a big family ourselves. And it was really very, very memorable. Sometimes my father brought home from the synagogue a poor man who was in Beregszázd and not belonging to Beregszázd, homeless or something, so he was with us. And my father went home through the whole thing at Passover, and my younger brother asked the 4 questions. And it was really a tradition at Passover evening for us. And we had 2 evenings like that, not one. I think in Israel they celebrate only one Passover evening, but we celebrated both of it.
Did you have friends that weren't Jewish in the neighborhood when you were a little girl?
Yes, of course. Our street was a very nice middle-class street, mostly Jewish people. There were a few non-Jewish families. As a matter of fact, when after, in 1913, after the Germans came in and we couldn't get any kind of jobs, a family who lived in my street, a Christian family, I was working for them as a bookkeeper. They had a big business and they needed something, and we knew each other so well. So I was working for them till they took us away to Auschwitz.
When you were a little girl, did you ever have any problems about being a Jew? Did anyone ever say anything to you? No.
Never. And I went to public schools. I didn't go to Jewish school. I won't say that Hungarian people are such nice people. They are anti-Semitic, pretty much so. But in our area, in our small town, somehow we got along very well. And I had Jewish and non-Jewish friends. They came to our house all the time. They came to my house to copy my whatever notes I took at school and so on, and I was helping them. And I really didn't have any problem with anti-Semitism till the Hungarian takeover in 1939.
Where did you go to school?
In Beregszázd.
And you said it was a public school, so...
It was public elementary, and the gymnasium was public, so we had to pay certain tuition fee, but only the people who could afford it. And it was a very good school. There was another high school they called Polgári, which was just 4 years. Gymnasium was 8 years. And from there you could right away go to medical school or any kind of college.
What language, when you were a little girl, when you first started out in school, what language was the school
Hungarian.
in?
Hungarian.
Hungarian from the beginning, and it stayed Hungarian throughout.
All the time, yes.
And what was your favorite kind of course of studies? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a doctor, and when we came back from Auschwitz, we stayed in Budapest for a certain amount of time, and I actually applied to the medical, to the college to go for medicine, but I never really finished anything.
So when you were a little girl, you knew this is what you wanted to study?
No, not as a little girl. I didn't think about it, you know.
Did you like to, you said you liked to read. What kind of
Great
things did
deal.
you read?
Well, all the good books, really, all the good authors. As a young girl, whatever I read now, for instance, I read now, let's say, H.E. Lawrence or whatever American. I read all those things in Hungarian. Henry James. All these good
So you
authors.
read all that in Hungarian translation as a child?
Right. All these books are translated into Hungarian, yes.
And your sisters and brothers, did they all go to the same school as you? They went to school in Bergzad?
Right. They all went to school in Bergzad. My brothers, my sisters.
Did you belong to any youth movements when you were a child?
Yes, it is the Kadima. It is a kind of Zionist organization, but we didn't take it so serious we didn't have political direction actually. It was like a scout movement here in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. It was like that something. We took very beautiful trips into the countryside. We came together every Sunday. We had a home to come down. We had the leaders there. We sang the Hatikvai, this type of thing. It was nice, but not a politicized kind of movement.
It was just a group of young Jewish people.
Right.
What did you do in the summer when you had vacation?
We had a beautiful vineyard, which was about 5 kilometers from our house. We went there very often. We had there a small house, lot of fruit and grapes, and very beautiful place. And then we had not far away the river Tisa, and we had to drive there because it was not walking distance. And we were there to swim. And that was it, the vineyard, the swimming. And we are so happy at home. Don't forget, we are a big family. I had brothers and sisters and books, and so we didn't really lack company, or we never were bored.
Was your family well-to-do financially?
Yes, we weren't millionaires, but we did middle class. I never knew what is not to have food or not to have clothing or this type of problems. We didn't have.
When you finished the gymnasium, what year was that in?
39.
That was 1939.
That time. You know, actually, the school starts in September, right? November of 39, the Hungarians came to occupy my barracks. The school was installed for 2 or 3 months. And after, when it started again, we were already Hungarians. So I had actually a Hungarian, le bachot, they say in French.
Baccalaureate.
Right, baccalaureate. Right, Hungarian. The 7 years I finished under the Czech rule, and the 8 years under Hungarians.
What was the difference that last year? Was there any difference in the school itself under Hungarian rule?
Well, when they came in, these Hungarians, they were lousy. They were beating up all Jewish men. When we started school, a lot of Jewish children were just closed down. They didn't want them. I don't know for what reason. I was lucky enough that they didn't put me away. I mean, I was able to finish. But it was like day and night. Under the Czechs, it was absolute democracy. And you didn't feel, as I said, never felt anti-Semitism or anything. But when the Hungarians came in, everything changed, and for the worse.
In the few years before the Hungarians came in, do you remember your parents or your family talking at all about what was happening in Europe around them?
You know, my father was an avid newspaper reader, and we had a newspaper from a bigger town than Berexaz. Every day it came. And we heard already about Hitler and what's going on in Germany. But we never thought that it will come to that, but it came to. we knew that the German Jews were in big trouble and tragedies, and part of them were smart enough to leave the German when they had a chance to do it. But whoever stayed behind, we heard about Kristallnacht and everything, whatever it involved.
Oh, you did hear about that.
Right, from newspapers. You know, we had a radio in the house, but you couldn't hear openly news because everything was censored by the Hungarians. So we didn't know a lot of things what really went on. But here and there, they wrote something, but not everything, about Hitler's regime, whatever he did there.
Was there anybody in Bergveld or in your surroundings that were planning on leaving because of what was happening?
You know, my matura was in 39. The class which matured 2 years before, a lot of very, how to put it, bright young boys left barracks for England. At that time they started to get out, but not everybody didn't have a chance to do it. You needed money and connections and a lot of other things. It wasn't easy. But yes, people who were smart enough, they left.
These were Jewish boys?
Jewish boys, very brilliant Jewish boys. One of them was my husband's cousin, also a Neufeld, who lived in barracks house. Very bright boys with very good chances for the future.
So what did you think when you heard of these people leaving? What went through your mind? Did you have any idea?
It disturbed me very much because I didn't want to leave. We had a big family. I wouldn't have left my family. But it started at me thinking, what are we doing? And we never were thinking that it will come to that tragedy, is what it came to. We just thought that it won't be good. We don't have a future here. We didn't think on the terms of dying, concentration camp, of this type of things. But I was disturbed by it, and I couldn't make up. I was too young. My parents wouldn't have let me alone out anyway.
Even if you wanted to?
Right, you know. They were so protective of us.
When the Hungarians came in, was the life different also for the non-Jews that lived in the Carpathian Mountains?
Yes, it was. It was. For, you know, a lot of Hungarians, they had a very nice chance and change in their life. They took over all the Jewish big businesses.
This was immediately in 1939?
Not in a year or so. The big Jewish businesses, the owners were just put out, and they took it over.
So they really benefited from this new regime?
Most of them benefited it, so they loved it, of course.
Did you feel any change in their attitude towards you, your neighbors that lived with you all those years? Did they change?
I will tell you something. I had very nice classmates who were very friendly with me before. After, there were maybe one or two Christian classmates. We were really close all the way, but the rest stayed away. You know, because they didn't want to get involved with a Jewish girl. It wasn't a big advantage to be friend of a Jewish girl. So they just ignored me, and I ignored them. We met on the street, we didn't greet each other, this type of things.
How did you feel about that?
Bad. Mm-hmm.
You remember feeling badly?
Right.
So what was the first drastic thing that really happened to you and your family after the Hungarians came in?
The most drastic thing when the Germans came in, which was in
1944.
Right.
But before that, in 1940,
under the Hungarian, I will
41,
tell you something. My father was able to do his business because he had a very good Christian friend, and he took him in as a partner. He was a very nice guy, but poor, big family. So he was a partner, and my father gave him his living and everything, and he was helping my father to keep up his business. So till the last minute, my father did his business. Instead of for the Czech army, he was delivering the same kind of merchants to the Hungarian army under the name of his non-Jewish friend. So we weren't really affected money-wise.
But for you, in 1940, when you finished your degree, what did you do?
As I say, his family took me in as a bookkeeper.
Oh, his family that
and I was working very hard for them. And I was pretty good at it. Even though I never had a bookkeeping training because my school didn't train me for bookkeeping, but it wasn't such a big thing to learn it. I was very good with figures. We didn't have adding machines. We didn't have computers, anything. So I had to do every calculation, on paper and do everything. And I was good at it. So they kept me, and I was happy to have something to do because otherwise it's was really bad with these Jewish young people. No future and no hope for anything. You know, the boys went into this forced labor camp, but we girls, we stayed at home. So I was lucky to get that job. And I earned money, of course.
When the boys were taken away to forced labor, were your brothers taken as well?
My older brother, yes. My younger brother was too young. He came with us into Auschwitz. My younger brother is 6 years younger than I am.
So when they were taking the young men into forced labor in 1940-41,
Right.
what was going through your mind? What were you thinking was
You
going
know,
on?
we still didn't think that anything will come to what came to in Auschwitz. We just thought that it will be over, nothing lasts forever. Sooner or later, there may be a good change. And, you know, as my husband explained it probably, from time to time they came home in the late fall. They spent the winter home and they were called in again. So that was the same with my brother. So he went in quite a few times.
And came home again.
He was lucky, thank God, that he came home, and he's still alive today. He's 86 years old, 84 years old.
Wow. What about your social life in those years? What did you do?
In the
for
Hungarian times,
Yeah.
I had very good friends, girlfriends, some boyfriends, not in the, not boyfriends, friends.
Uh-huh.
And we came together. We were actually, I was studying French, my French. I continued to study. We came together and we were discussing certain topics at each other's house. We lent all our books to each other because not everybody had a library that you have now. And that was that, and we were happy that way, you know.
There were no curfews or anything like that?
In the first few days when the Hungarian came in, there was curfew, and then they lifted it and everybody was free to come and go.
And your mother, what did she do during all this
My
time?
mother
Was a housewife all through?
right, she had 8 children, and she had some help, but she worked very hard. She was a very good mother, taking care of her children. That was the center of her life, her children.
Your father obviously did very well, but do you know of other Jewish families that were struggling when they no longer could work?
There are a lot of poor Jewish families, yes. They lost their business, or they were certain, let's say, a shoemaker, they took away their shoe store, or a barber, they took away his barber shop, and they were struggling.
And you had friends who had families that were struggling like that?
Well, my friends, they were all right, generally.
How did other things change? Doctors, medicine?
Yes. You know, the lawyers weren't able to practice their law anymore.
The Jewish lawyers?
Jewish ones. The doctors, they were taking away their office. They weren't able to practice. A lot of people lost their jobs. Jewish people, you know, under the Czechs, a lot of Jewish people worked for the city or government, whatever. They all lost their jobs, of course. It affected very badly. The Jewish population felt it very badly, economically as well as otherwise. Their children, for instance, if I wanted to go to college, I couldn't get into college. There was numerous rules, there was numerous clauses, and they took in a certain percentage of Jewish students, but numerous rules meant nobody was able to get into college.
And this was from what year on?
From 39 to 44. Before 39, all our young children who finished AG University went to Prague to college. They started their medical school or law school or whatever, but in 39 everything just stopped. That's why they started to get out.
In 44, when the Germans invaded, what do you remember? What's the first thing that you remember?
We had to put on a yellow star right away. They took a lot of Jewish people away. It was a terror. It was such a panicky atmosphere in the whole city. And they came end of March, I think they came into barracks us. And end of April, so they started already deporting us.
Do you remember the first time you had to put on a yellow star?
Yes, I remember it. My younger sister made it. She was very good with needle. And even then I went to work with my yellow star. And it was not a humiliating, a terrifying experience.
Were there German soldiers or were there Hungarian
Yes,
soldiers?
German soldiers were in the city. We had nothing to do with them, thank God. They stayed at the headquarters, which should take away from a Jewish family, a beautiful big building. And we didn't have to do anything with the German soldiers in Beregszáz, only the Hungarian policemen or this type of things. But it hadn't been very long in Beregszáz. When the Germans came in, pretty soon they started to deport Jewish people. First they started the area of Beregszáz, the small villages and so on, and they came to Beregszáz.
So they sent the people from the small villages into Beregszáz, the Jews?
Right.
Were in Beregszáz?
There was a big brick factory, and there we stayed.
So that was, you mean the ghetto?
Yeah, like a ghetto.
But before the ghetto, did they terrorize the Jews? What did they do when they first came in? Before the ghetto? Yeah.
Well, as I say, they took away quite a number of Jewish people. You never saw them or heard of them anymore. We were afraid to go out.
Did anyone come to your home?
No, Germans didn't come to my house, no.
Did they go to other homes?
They did, obviously, because they took away certain
people away.
People, yeah. But it was, you didn't have to see them to feel the atmosphere. It was really the worst what you can imagine. The Hungarians were bad enough when we came in 1939, but that settled down, We started our normal life again under the Hungarians. But when the Germans came down, we knew that it is nothing good can come out of it. We were really terrified.
When did your father's business actually come to an end?
Well, in the beginning of 1944.
Before the Germans came?
When the Germans came, actually.
Did he ever talk about what he thought was happening up to this last
Well,
minute?
it is, you can't believe it today that the communication was so poor. The radio didn't say anything. The newspapers were all censored. We didn't have any outside information of anything. So we just had to guess really what's going on. Here and there something from the English radio. It was forbidden to listen to the BBC. You couldn't listen to openly. So we were really so ignorant about so many things.
How did you know that the Germans were there? I mean, how did you know that their presence
We saw that, we were pretty close to the center where they took over that building. The daughters, one of the daughters was my friend, and they took over the whole place, and German soldiers you could see on the main street walking, and tanks rolling over to the street. And even the Hungarians were very scared of them, not only the Jews. They changed the whole atmosphere and the whole everything in Beregszáz. You didn't have to feel it physically, really.
Right. We're going to continue on the next tape. Tape number 2, survivor Charlotte Neufeld. So when the ghetto was in the April of 1944 in Beregszáz, how did you find out that you had to go into the ghetto?
They
Who
came to
told
our
you?
house. Policemen came to our house, told us to pack something for ourselves, and we were just walked out, and they came with us to, first we went to another place where I don't know how many hundreds of people were together, and from there they took us to this brick factory.
What, did they wait for you while you packed your things?
Right.
What did you take with you? Do you remember?
A few clothing, some food, that's it.
You didn't take anything that was special to you with you?
No, like pictures or no.
So that meeting place where everybody was, where there was all the Jews from Beregszáz in that one place?
They started bringing in Jews. At the same time, they started to taking them out into these wagons and starting to take them out from Beregszáz. So whoever came in, they had room enough for the coming in people. Because these cattle wagons they filled it up already and they took them. We just didn't know where to.
So you didn't know where they were going?
No. You know, there was interesting situation there. There was this non-Jewish woman who had a Jewish husband came us into the ghetto. And some of the Hungarian policemen told her to get out because she will be taken to a place. And she got out. Probably this policeman knew exactly that we are going to Auschwitz.
How did you know about this? Who told you this?
She was packing her things and I was asking her. She was my classmate in the elementary school. Where are you going? She said, I am getting out. This and this person told me to get out. And then I felt terribly because I thought if that's the case, we are in a very, very serious situation.
Can you describe this ghetto to me? What was it like?
We were just on 1 week in that place. It was actually a brick factory. They put into there was a big, like a shed or something. They put on this bed, bed. It was the cot rather, and everybody had their belonging there, and we were on a cot. 4 persons didn't have enough. Daytime we were lucky it was spring, we were able to outdoors, but it was terrible at night. And the children were crying, and the family wasn't together. The men were away. The women with the children came in, and the old people, of course. But it lasted only a week.
Who were you with from your family?
My mother and my father was out in another place. There was a street where the old people could go into the ghetto. So they went from there by themselves into these cattle wagons. My older sister who had a little girl, this beautiful little girl, she was with us. We were there, my younger brother, my younger sister, me, my older sister and her little daughter. We were together. My older brother was in labor camp. My other sisters were married, not in barracks.
So your parents actually were in another building?
From another street they were carried into these cattle wagons.
Did you see them again?
No, yeah.
Do you remember the last time that you saw them?
I remember we got a permit with my younger sister to go and visit them from my ghetto, from my brick factory. And we went there and we went out, bought them some food because we didn't stay in our own home. It was a street where they had to go. And my mother was busy sewing things. My father was reading newspapers. We never realized that that's the last time we will see each other.
Who was guarding the brick factory where you were staying?
Hungarian policemen, Hungarians, not Germans.
And how did they treat you?
They tried to be very neutral, they didn't get involved with us. They tried to be, they weren't cruel or anything, but they kept very strict discipline. You couldn't go here, you couldn't go there, you couldn't talk too much with each other. Early in the evening they had to go to that inn and to sleep.
And the sanitation, the bathroom facilities? Were there any bathrooms?
None. Luckily it was a big area, and you could go out there and do whatever you wanted. It was like a big field around the factory.
Were there Hungarians that could look in, the normal population? Could they look in and see what was happening?
No, they didn't come close because the Hungarian policemen didn't let them. They were friendly Hungarian families. They would have brought us food or something, but they didn't let in. And you know what, I think most of them are very happy that they're taken away because the minute we left the house, a Hungarian family moved already right into our house. We had a big, nice house. And when we came home, we were moved out already, and they took away most of the things. They had a few furniture pieces remained when we came back in the spring of '45. The point is that they were happy to take over our
belongings in your home.
Houses and whatever we had there, yes.
What were you thinking when you were in this brick factory at night? What thoughts went through your mind?
We were pretty down. We didn't know what is coming. We didn't know that they are killing the Jews in thousands every day. We just, they were talking about that we will be resettled to another place, and we will be working there. They gave us every kind of stories, but not the truth.
So what happened after 8 days in the ghetto?
We were taken into these cattle wagons, and about 2 or 3 days we were in these wagons.
In train cars?
In train cars, till we reached Birkenau.
Can you describe the train ride to me?
Terrible. They didn't tell us to go down, We had food, because we took with us some food. Clothing, there was no problem. Nobody had a chance to change anyway or clean. But
how many people were in a car?
About 80 people in push. We had a narrow space with my 2 sisters' brother, and there we were laying on the ground, on the floor. There was nothing there, absolutely empty cattle wagons. Whatever you took in with you, that was that. But in less than 3 days.
And water? Was there water?
Water. Sometimes the train stopped. At certain station, a few people were allowed to jump down and bring a pail of water. That was that.
So after 3 days, the doors opened up, and where were...
After 3 days, the doors opened up, and we got out. There they were this assessment in Birkenau, telling the old people and children to go on one side, young people to the other side. And then we were taken into a place where they took the shade of our hair. We were absolute bald. We got some gray dresses, everybody the same, with a number on it. Many people they were tattooed in. I wasn't in that group. And from there we were taken to blocks, they called it, in Birkenau, long buildings, and were put on Koya, they called it. It was a big square from wood, and about 10, 12 people were on one Koya. And that's the way we were living there for 6 weeks.
When the doors first opened, the first thing you saw were German soldiers?
Right. There were workers, Jewish men workers. They took out the luggage, and they were advising the young women to give their children to the grandma. They wanted to save the young women, because if you went in with a child, you never came out alive. So,
did they tell you anything else, or they just warned you about that?
They didn't want to scare us. Didn't make any sense. I was seeing this picture about the Holocaust, the first part anyway, and the Polish peasants, they were telling the interviewer that we were telling the men who were sitting already in the wagon that they will come to death. So that was a cruel thing to do. They had no way to escape anyway. So that was the same here.
The selection, did you go with your sisters, or were you separated?
My older sister went here with her little girl. I went with my younger sister.
Did you understand then what was going on? Did you know what the chimneys were?
Not exactly. Even then, imagine that, the ignorance. I cannot understand how we were so ignorant. Even then we didn't know that where we are going. We didn't know that the people were separated. They went right into the crematoriums. And we were taken to these blocks.
But when did you find out about the crematorium?
When we were in these blocks already, there were Slovak girls who were taken away 2-3 years before, and whoever survived, they had a position in these blocks. They were they took care of us. And when we said that when we are going to see our parents, they started to let us say, look out the window, look out. There wasn't window there, but there was an open door, and the chimney was always giving out the smoke. There are your parents, they said. And we said among each other, how cruel they are, cannot be true. And it was the truth. These poor girls, they really suffered so much. I didn't blame them for any kind of cruel thing they did, because they went through hell till if they survived 2 years in Birkenau, it wasn't easy.
So for the time that you were in Birkenau, what did you do? What did they
We were
have you
there
doing?
6 weeks. Where most of the time we did nothing. We were outdoors. It was very chilly there because it was much colder than in my place in barracks, for instance. But once, they took a few of us to carry dirty laundry into a building. We were walking about 10, 15 minutes carrying this heavy load. And there was a building. Outside the building there was like a hill, a big hill, that's all human bones. Inside the building there were Jewish girls asking us, trying to be nice to us, taking away the things. And then they got very frightened. I saw that a German SS woman came, and she started to select among the workers who were working there, about 20 girls, who is in good condition, who is in bad condition. Whoever was in bad condition, they were put aside and taken to the crematorium. They started to scream and cry, and we were so frightened. This other girl, she hid us, so this SS woman doesn't see us. We were just ignorant young girls coming into the place 2, 3, 4 weeks before. We didn't know what's going on. And whoever taken, selected out there, they went to crematorium. I was never forgetting it. Can you imagine like a building, a big hill, all human bones? It seems to me they weren't able to burn all the bones in these crematoriums.
Did you recognize that they were bones, or did you have
We
to come up
recognized it.
close
Yes, we
to see
recognized.
that?
They were all human bones. Once we strayed away a little bit from our block, about 2, 3 buildings, and there we saw corpse, human corpse, laid out like cord of wood, this way and this way. And they were human beings there. So
When you looked at your sister with no hair, how did
it didn't
You
affect
react
us
to
at
that.
all, We are so much more busy with all the whatever we lost and whatever is there. Vanity didn't come into the question at all.
What about the capos in your barracks? Did anybody
The
mistreat
couple
you?
there was a Polish couple, a young, very beautiful girl. She was cruel like as a tiger. She was carrying this leather, how do you call it?
Whip.
And she was whipping around the girls, wherever she could find them.
Did
a
you-
beautiful young girl.
Did you ever get hit?
I was lucky. I was in the back. We were standing Zélappel, they call it, every morning, 5 girls in a row. I was in the back, so I wasn't. But whoever was in the front, they got it right.
Were you ever afraid that you would be selected during those 6 weeks?
We didn't even think about it. That in the 6 weeks they didn't do selections, and we just didn't think about that part of things. But we were very lucky that after 6 weeks they took us out from there.
What were the circumstances under which they took you out?
They came to the block and they took us into an other block where they prepared the people for the journey. We didn't get any food or anything, but we had to stay all night long. We couldn't go to sleep because there were so many screaming and everything going around. They had, these Slovak girls who were there before us. They had a terrible task to put everything in order and to make us able to go to that cattle wagon again, and so much responsibility on them. They were under terrible pressure, you can imagine. So in the early morning we were taken out from there. And I will never forget that there was these Jewish guys who were working, carrying out everything, working there. And one of them was an opera singer, and they started to sing. The contrapunto. This beautiful song and whatever was behind it. It was so terrible to realize. Yes, and we went into that wagon, and we were quite a few days in that cattle train, and they took us into the Ruhr area in Germany. It was called Gelsenkirchen, a bombed down area. It was an industrial area for Germany, near the French border. Everything was bombed down. They took us into big military tents because there were no buildings there. About 300 of us in a big tent. And we were there cleaning away the ruins.
Were you with your sister the entire time? You were with your sister the entire
With my
time?
all the time.
And anybody else that you knew?
Very good friends, very good friends. We had to be 5 people together for Szélapel. So we had a family of three sisters. The 3 sisters and we two, we always were standing together.
Did you share a tent with them? Were you in the same tent?
The same tent. We shared a big tent, a lot of these wooden kind of primitively made beds. But that was very good compared to Auschwitz, to Birkenau. And we were happy to get out from there because after 6 weeks we were there, we realized what kind of place we are at. But we went there.
This is the summer of 44.
Right. But in early September, the Americans bombed us. They were military tents, and we were probably didn't know that who we were. They took us for soldiers or something. We were bombed terribly. They were raised almost every night, but bombing just this once. They bombed, but not over us. And when they bombed us, about 3 of our girls died there.
But the 5 of you that were together, you were all were okay.
One of us were killed in the bombing. The older sister, she was my best friend. And they took together after the bombing. There were Italian, they were not soldiers, they were actually prisoners of war. And they took together the girls and they cremated them.
The girls that had died.
Right. And then after that they took us to Szőmerda.
Where was that?
It was in Thuringia.
And how did you get there?
In Kettőwagnons again.
In trains?
In train. It was pretty far from that place. Ruhr is all the way in northern Germany. This is near the Czech borders. It was quite a long train ride.
It was beginning the fall? It was in the fall?
It was end of September.
What kind of clothing did you have on?
Whatever we had there, at that time we had these dresses with stripes, like the men you see, and nothing else.
And your feet, what kind of shoes did you have on?
Oh, shoes, but I had my own shoes from home. Luckily I had high shoes with laces, and I kept it all the time. The shoes were very important.
Was it cold?
It was cold. It was, it is a northern part of Europe. It is much cooler than like Italy or Spain. And at night it was terribly cold.
Did you have blankets or anything to cover yourself?
No, we didn't have anything. We didn't have water, we didn't have food, we didn't have anything.
So when you got to Szőmerda, what kind of camp was that?
They put us up into lines against Szélapel lines, and they took us into, that was already barracks, not tents, barracks. And they went into those barracks, which was a very nice change from a tent to a barrack, because winter came and it was cold already. And we were there, 1 day or so, and we started working in a munition factory.
What was your job there?
First of all, I was sitting at a machine, putting together the bullet, the bottom part and the bottom part.
The casing.
And I was lucky to have my sister as my assistant. I was working there for, I don't know how long, then they, these big supervisor Germans came in all the time to see what we are doing there, not because our workers who were foremen or whatever, they were pretty nice guys, tried to the best of the situation. But when the supervision came, they were frightened themselves. Then we had to show how hard we work and so on. And once one came in and he called me aside and I was frightened, of course. It was never good when you are selected for anything, but they put me in charge of about 60 to 80 people as a supervisor. Don't think it wasn't that I had to push them to work because they didn't have enough raw material to work. Sometimes they had to just to make believe that they are working. So do everything in order that they should seem occupied. So I had to think of what to do. We had middle-aged women with us. I was a young girl then, And I try to do my best really for these older women, to give them the best places in that big hall where we're working, and try to save them a lot of whatever I could. And we had young girls, much younger than I am. For them, I was trying to do a lot too.
And at night, what kind of barracks did you sleep
At
in?
night, you see, we were 1 week on day shift, 1 week on night shift, so we changed. At night, the barrack, we had a bed. I was with my sister on a cot, and we had there some kind of a blanket too.
What did you used to talk about with your sister? What kind of conversation?
You wouldn't believe it. I knew a lot of beautiful poetry. We were really stealing the paper and pen. We didn't have anything from the factories where we were working. We were writing down these poems, and we put down a book together. There were very talented people from Hungary, a ballet dancer, another opera singer woman, and when we had a little off day, let's say, on Saturday afternoon, we came together, and they were singing and ballet dancing and this kind of thing. And talking, we didn't talk about our parents. We didn't know exactly for sure what happened to them, but we just avoided this kind of
Conversation.
We were so miserable.
Do you remember any of the poems that you wrote down?
Yes,
Let me hear one.
in Hungary.
Please, why not?
Most, hogy útfélre estem, átmődöm a téli estem. Mi volt az élet, Uram Isten?
What does that mean?
Know that I fell down on the side of the street. I started thinking, what is life about? It's a beautiful poem, it's modern poetry, not the. It is very, and it fitted very much into our situation now. We were so miserable. This man who wrote the poem was in the same type of, I don't know, miserable too. So I love that poem. And not a lot of people gave poems, and we made a book. That's the best way to keep your sanity, because otherwise you could go crazy. And the food was, we never were really satisfied. We never were very hungry either. So we are about 2,000 girls there in different barracks. We belong to a summer place. My husband mentioned it. And I have here, and a couple, they live here near us. The man is from my hometown. We know each other. And the woman was with me in that place. We just found out here.
So you didn't know her then?
No, we didn't know. It was very hard to recognize everybody. Everybody was without hair, with the gray dress. You couldn't really recognize people. But then our hair started to grow out. Winter time, we were looking a little bit like human beings again.
Did you ever get sick?
God, luckily not.
I know.
Because whoever got sick, they took them to a sick place. Whoever was really sick, they were sent to Auschwitz. And who was lucky enough to get out 1 to 3 days, they were the lucky one.
And your sister also was fine?
Thank God we were fine. You know what happened with us when we were in Gelsenkirchen? They came out, we were just a few days out from Auschwitz, from Birkenau actually. And they came to us that all the young women who are pregnant should report. And there were quite a few young women pregnant. They were young women. And they took them together and they sent them back to Auschwitz. They were killed right there, of course. And whoever had something, there was a girl with terrible wounds on her feet. She was sent away also.
Did you ever see any women being sexually harassed or abused?
No, that I didn't. No, I didn't. Whoever was watching us, these Germans, there are these German women there, they didn't need us. And we looked so terrible, believe me. We didn't appeal to them at all, with our half bald hair and the way we looked. We didn't have.
Did you witness any real cruelty or real violence towards prisoners in the time
There
you
was
were
a
there?
tall, heavy-set guy, and he always said, everything, alles ist kaputt, that everything is at the end. He took down his belt, which was a heavy ladder, and he was hitting the girls wherever he reached them. But he was, as far as I can remember, the only cruel person. The rest was they were doing their job. They were mostly elderly German, not young, elderly people.
And the women you were with were primarily Hungarian? Or from other countries also?
No, we were all Hungarians. We were so many of just Hungarians. We didn't have any other countries. I know that in Auschwitz we met other type of, like from Holland, Belgium, a lot of Polish, non-Jews, a lot of gypsies. In Auschwitz you had every type of people. But there where we were taken out, we were just Hungarians.
So how long did you stay in Samerda, in that camp?
In Samerda we were staying, we went there around September till the spring. The whole winter we were staying there. And when the Americans were approaching the place, and they were bombing all the time, the Syrians, they started us out on a march. And we were marching about 10 days or so.
Where were you marching towards?
We were marching toward the Czech border, I think. I have a lot of names, villages in which I wrote down. But we didn't know exactly where we are going. We just went wherever they wanted us to go.
Where did you sleep at night during
At
the
night,
march?
wherever. Sometimes we were lucky we went into a village. And in the village, sometimes we met decent people who gave us water to wash, to drink, some food, and they prepared straw in their barn, and that's where we slept, in barns.
And food?
Food, sometimes it's found on the field some kind of potato or something. We took it together. I really don't know where we got the food, how we survived, but we didn't have regular food from them, anything.
On the 10 days.
Nothing we didn't have.
We're going to continue on the next tape.
Okay.
Tape number 3 with survivor Charlotte Neufeld. You were talking about the death march at the end of the war.
So we didn't have any kind of food from the German people, the German SS, they were SS already. There was a point when all the Wehrmacht soldiers, had to go into the SS group. The SS was the most cruel part of the German army. So we didn't have any kind of food, but as I mentioned before, there were sometimes kind of farmers who gave us big pieces of bread and we shared it, or brought in some kind of a soup, and they tried to do whatever they could.
So the peasants when you were on the march, the people that you met along the way tried to help you?
We hardly met any people. It was winter, it was cold already, and the fields were all bare. We hardly met any Germans, unless we went into their place to sleep or something.
So what month was the march?
It was, in April it was March, and end of March, beginning of April. It was still very cold.
And how did it end after the 10 days?
So we came to a little village called Reinholdsheim, and there was a terrible, terrible bombardment from the Americans, and shooting from all over, and everybody was running wherever they could. The SS just disappeared. We didn't see them anymore. So we were lucky enough to get into a building and to the basement of the building with a German family. They were there too because they were shocked also. And we stayed there about 2 days. And when we came out, the Americans were already in.
How did you feel?
Happy, relieved, happy. And we didn't start asking ourselves questions, but it's our family. It was survival again. We were very hungry. We could get some food. There was American soldiers who took us to a place where a lot of textiles were in a big place. And everybody took something, and there were very handy girls. They take us dresses. We started really trying to get back to a normal life.
So did the Americans help you by giving you food or shelter?
We didn't get any food from the Americans, but we got some from the local people in the village. And well, it was very good compared with whatever was before that. We stayed in Reinholzan about 2 weeks or so. Then we heard that there is a cattle train again, no regular train, going toward Czechoslovakia, and we went on it. We were staying sometimes the whole night outdoors waiting for the train. There was no regular train. Right,
So you were still with your sister?
all the ways together. I was very lucky with her because she was much more resilient than I was. Whenever, for instance, when you were able to steal some food from the certain places, she was the one who went, to keep alive, and she, of course, we shared everything.
What month was this when you headed back towards home?
It must have been the end of April.
So you got on this cattle car, and where did it take you?
Oh, so many stations, but finally we ended up in Slovakia. And from there, we took another cattle train again and went back to Beregszáz.
And what did you find?
Where the family who lived there, they left already because they knew that we are starting to come back.
In your home, you mean?
Right, in my hometown. A very small percentage came back, really, a few young people, because old people just disappeared. And we went into a house, a few pieces of furniture remained, but we were able to find right away, get food. There was a friendly Christian family who came over, they came over and brought us a lot of things. And we found something in the house. We had a lot of fields and vineyards, and they were all put away into the cellar, and so we found something in the house. But I was staying just 2 weeks in the house, and I didn't want, we were not connected with Russia at that time. We didn't know will we belong again to Czechoslovakia or to Russia. The Russian officer, he told us we will belong to Russia, to Ukraine, and we didn't want to belong there, so I left right away for Budapest.
With your sister?
No, my sister stayed home a little bit longer, but she came up later. She came also.
When did you find out about what happened to your other brothers and sisters and your parents?
Well, we were 8 children, 5 of us came back, 3 didn't make it. Two sisters with young children, and my oldest brother, who made it from the labor camps to Germany, but he died in sickness, in typhus, you call it?
Yes, typhus.
Not
Typhoid fever.
A lot of young men died there in typhus. So the 5 of us came back.
How did you find one another?
My older sister, who died about a year ago, she was in Auschwitz also, but not with us. She was in a different place because she came in from a neighboring village. My older brother, he was at home already. As I told you before, I was registering myself into the medical school in Budapest. My older brother told me, Charlotte, come home, nobody home, I need you, and I didn't really have the means to go to college. Whatever we had, we are not poor people, we didn't have it anymore. So I went to Beregszáz. He was all right. My younger brother came back. He was in Auschwitz. He was sent out to work, also into Germany. He made it. And with my younger sister, we were all the time together. So my brother, my older sister, and my younger brother, they stayed in Beregszáz. And when they came out in 76 or so, when the Russian Jew started letting out Jews, then they came out. Me and my sister, my younger sister, we were in Budapest. So we were the only out, one to be out from Beregszáz.
When did you meet your husband?
Actually, I had a boyfriend, not in the meaning that we didn't have sexual connection. He told my husband if he wants to meet a nice girl. So he brought down my husband into my parents' house. And after that, he came a few times to visit us. When we were taking him to ghetto, he was still coming to our house. And then when I came to Budapest, he was there already. And
so you met before the war?
Right. Before we were taken away. He as I say, he used to come to our house often. And when we came to Budapest, we decided we get married. And October the 14th, we got married in Budapest.
What kind of wedding did you have? Who was there?
My mother, my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, had a nice apartment, and she made the wedding, and they had to go down to call up 2 Jewish people to have a minyan, 10 people. I was living there with friends, a very nice couple with 2 children, and they came to my wedding. And I had the dress which my sister made me, my younger sister. I didn't have anything on my head or anything like that. And there was a regular tittled dinner which my sister-in-law cooked, and that was that. In 45 October, the situation was pretty bad everywhere, ruins in Budapest, they were bombed out, especially in Buda. And the stores were empty, food was very hard to come by. It was after the war.
So when did you leave Budapest, you and your husband?
In 47 we left Budapest for Prague. We lived there for 2 more years in Prague. When they killed Masaryk, I don't know, did you hear that name? He was the first president's son, a lovely man, politically very liberal, not a communist. They threw him out from the window of his palace. They killed him. And it started a panicky atmosphere again, and we said we have to get out. Then we got out.
And this was in 49?
49, right, and went to Israel. My younger sister was there already from Budapest with her husband, and we lived together about more than a year because we didn't have an apartment. And then we got an apartment, in a new house. We paid down, you know. My husband was working.
What was the hardest part when you were in Israel? What was the most difficult thing for you during that time?
Basically, everything was very hard. You know, food was scarce. We didn't have a house. I didn't have some kind of a training to go right away to work. The family, we missed the family. But luckily I had my sister. And then my husband started a tire manufacturing, and we started to get back to normal. And I got pregnant and I had my son there. And
when did you come to America?
In 58, May of 58. My husband came about a few months before me. We couldn't come together. He had to send the papers for us. And the 58th of May we came, and we were living in the same street as now, only 34 hillside, not 99 hillside. We moved from here, there was only 1 bedroom. And we wanted another bedroom, so we moved here. And we are living here 25 years already in this place.
What was it like for you coming to America?
I was very happy. I was very homesick after Israel for quite a few weeks. But then when I started working and I felt that I am a normal human being again, then I started to enjoy myself. And my son was such a nice little boy, and really he gave me a lot of joy.
What was it like for you to be separated from your sister after having spent all those
So
years
my sister,
together?
that was the hardest part. I was homesick for weeks. But we called each other. We correspond very often. I call her very often. I miss her very much. She's a very lovely person.
What kind of work did you do here all these years?
First, bookkeeping mostly. First, I started with my husband's company, and then I went over to his insurance company. There I stayed more than 20 years, about 5 years with my husband's company. And insurance company has a statistical department. We prepared all the statements every quarter year, how the company is doing, working up a lot of figures, which I love. I love to work with figures. And I retired from there, and I am still getting some kind of a pension from them. Not much, but something.
Did you ever talk to anybody about what happened to you during the war?
I wasn't able to open up. It was a terrible thing. You know, I was working, my boss was a very nice Jewish guy, and he always telling me, you are always talking about your mother-in-law, Tom, which is in Budapest. You never talk about your own parents. I was never able to tell him. On the last few days when I was leaving the company, retiring, then I was telling him. I somehow wasn't able to bring myself to talk about it.
What about with friends, other friends who were survivors? Could you talk at all, or?
Yeah, we are talking about it. We are talking about it. I have nearby 2 friends. One is the one who was in the same place as I. We are talking about it, but not the most terrible part of it, you know.
And with your husband?
He's talking more about it than I do. He's talking about his experience. Sometimes he said he has nightmares, you know, from it. He was on pretty tough places himself. I somehow can't bring myself to talk about it. I don't know why.
Did you ever talk with your son?
You know, he must pick up Holocaust schools in college, and he started asking questions. Then I was answering questions. But I never volunteered to tell him things about how it was. I always said he's too young for artist horror.
When you think back on everything, how do you think what happened to you influenced who you became in your life?
Well, I was a pretty serious girl before, and I became even more serious after. You know, I was able to put away from my mind all these thoughts and not to think about it, you know. And even today, if I don't have to think about it, I just push it away from my mind.
Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do. After all this horror, I believe in humans too. I believe there are very decent human beings because I met them here and there, not many of them, but I met a few. They were trying to help, they were very good to me in Prague, in Budapest, even in Germany. I found an old man, he tried to help me a lot. So there are still good human beings around, not too many of them.
If you had to tell something to the world about your life and your experience and what should be learned from it, what would you say?
That no matter how down you are, how many tragedies or difficulties you survive, if you have the will, you can rebuild your life and start all over again. That's what happened to us. You know, we were really coming out with a valise or nothing else. We lost our real estate, everything was staying behind. And we started with nothing else. We were living a pretty decent life, and I hope that I gave a good education to my son. Yeah, the only son. And I try to help, you know, my relatives sending packages and money whenever I could, even today, when it is a little bit more difficult because I'm not young anymore. But I think that if you have the little willpower, no matter what kind of difficulties you have to face, you are able to overcome them and start all over again.
What made you decide to do this tape now?
Mostly my grandchildren. My son was pushing us, but I'm doing my grandchildren's tape because I love them very much. They are two fine children. That's the only big result of our life, of my life at least.
Not exactly, but...
That is it. Because when you are young, you are dreaming that you will be this or that. I just became a very average person with every job, and nothing special. But that I have these two grandchildren. I have hope for the future that our generation will survive. And the name of my husband's family is surviving in Benjamin. My brother-in-law, my husband's younger brother, lived here nearby us. He died about 4 months ago. He changed his name into Neufeld. He spells it differently. I never went for that type of thing. I believe in continuity. The family has to go on. My husband comes from a very nice family. Really. His grandfather had a great knowledge.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
And I thank you too for, in my name of my grandchildren and my son and my daughter-in-law.
Thank you, Mrs. Neufeld.
On this picture you can see my father. His name was Ignác Ickovics. The picture was taken in the First World War, around 1918, 1917, 1918. He was there for 2 or 3 years.
Which army was he in?
Hungarian, Austro-Hungarian army. And he came home, he had some kind of I don't know what kind of rank, like a surgeon or something.
How did you find this picture? Where did you find it?
When we came back from Auschwitz, we went home. I was staying at home about 2 weeks. And the Christian neighbor found my album and brought it back to my house. And there it was in that album. That's why I have so many of these old pictures, before the war pictures. That's the way I got it back. Here's my mother and my father, my parents, at an older age, of course, than on the previous picture. And I think this picture was made actually for a passport, because it was a small picture, I had to enlarge it. And I sent it to all my sisters and brothers because they didn't have all the same. They didn't have pictures I had. They must have been in his. It must have been the late 30s that this picture was taken. The bottom right is standing is my brother Morris. He was the oldest. Next to him is sitting my brother Loichi. My father is my youngest brother Ernest. Then is my sister Dora. Before her is my sister Berta, my mother. On the left side top is my sister Lenke. On the sitting position it is me and my younger sister Irene.
What year was this picture taken in, do you know?
In the late 20s probably, because I was born in 1990s. I was about 9-10 years old there. About in the late 20s, or let's say 29 or so, 30 maybe. On the right-hand corner is my brother Morris. Next to him is my brother-in-law Sándor, my older sister Lenke, and a relative on her right side. Sitting is my sister Dora and my brother's fiancée, Ilona.
What year was this?
I was thinking about it. Must have been the early 30s because I was a very small girl. This is my sister Berta's little daughter, Zsuzsi. We went together in Auschwitz with her and her mother. She must have been about 5 or 6 years, not even 6, 5 years old. Very lovely little girl she was. They are my other sister's 2 children, Joseph and Lily. They went away with their mother to Auschwitz, but my sister gave it to our aunt. The man working there advised her to give the children away. And they, of course, never came back. My sister survived. She died about a year ago in Israel. There I am with my younger sister Irene. It was taken before the war. I could be there about 19, 20 years old. My sister was 2 years younger than me. It was taken in Belexaz. This picture is me and my husband, about 1948. We just arrived into Prague and we were living there for 2 years or so. And it was taken by a professional photographer. This picture was taken at Lincoln Center. It is my son, my daughter-in-law, and my 2 grandchildren, Amos, Andrea, Benjamin, and Madeleine.
What year was the picture
It was
taken?
taken about 3 years ago.
Kell cserélni a székeket? Nem.
Would you like to introduce this man?
This man is my husband, Ernest Neufeld. On the 14th of October was our 51st wedding anniversary. He didn't make a big fuss over it because he don't like parties and so on. But we're talking about it a great deal, what happened during these 51 years of marriage.
Do you want to say anything, Mr. Neufeld, about your life with this lady for 51 years?
She was helping me a lot. In the beginning, it was very tough time. We were in different countries, in 3 countries. This was the 4th one, in the United States. So we had the start was all the time tough, and I had a good partner. She helped me all the time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.